Hey there, I'm Ken. This is Canadian Retro Things. Welcome. Today, I'm going to try and get to the bottom of why one of my Commodore 64s is acting really, really strange. A few weeks ago, I did a video where one of my Commodore 64s that I had thought was working, I discovered was not working. It wasn't interfacing with a disk drive. So I had to try to figure out what was wrong there. I figured out that U2 was bad, so I changed that, and it started working with the disk drive. But now it's doing some very strange things. You know what? How about I show you what it's doing rather than telling you? This is the Commodore 64 in question. What it's doing that's really strange is when I turn on the computer with the diagnostic cartridge in, it freezes on the screen RAM and it says that U9, U11, and U22 are bad. Now in the previous video, I checked all three of those. I put working chips into this computer and it's still doing that. But that's not the strange part. When I put something like my Easy Flash cartridge in, games will load up. And they do work. So it's very odd. So it's saying that there's a problem with the screen RAM. It's giving me all these bad spots, but it's still working. Now, I don't know if I'm being overly fussy trying to figure out what's going on here. I mean, it is working. It's just weird that it's giving that error with the diagnostic cartridge. My thought is that if there is something going wrong in there, it's probably going to turn into a big problem in the future, so why not try and fix it now? I guess the first thing I'm going to have to do is maybe take all of the memory chips out and test them all and go from there. But before we do that, I have to give a big thank you to the sponsor of today's video, PCBWay. PCBWay is the place to get PCBs printed starting at $5 for 10 boards. But the question is, how is their product? I've personally ordered PCBs from them and can say that their circuit boards are excellent. One of my orders was cartridge PCBs, something that gets wear and tear inserting and removing it from a retro game system. And after doing this hundreds of times, the PCBs have given me exactly 0 problems. The build quality is 10 out of 10. So why not try PCBWay today by visiting www.pcbway.com. So what I'm planning on doing is removing each and every one of these memory chips just to test them all and see if I can find one that's wrong, not working. All of the chips are removed, sockets are added, and I only lifted one pad. Now I can test the chips. If nothing else, I'm getting a lot of soldering practice. I've got my working C64 here. I've got one spot that I can put chips in. I've got all the chips here that I've pulled out of the other computer. So I'm going to go through, I'm going to test them one at a time. Now, the previous one that did go bad on here went bad on RAM test number 2. It froze up. And usually it was on the 3rd or 4th pass. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let these go through about 10 times for each chip. And then we'll see if I find any more bad chips. All right. I've put all of the chips through their paces, and I've found one more chip that was freezing up. So now there's 2 chips here that were freezing, and the other ones all went for between 10 and 15 count of working fine. Now the chip that did freeze up again kind of randomly was freezing up. It froze up once on the second pass, then the next time I pushed it through again, and it wasn't until the fourth or fifth pass. So it's another chip that's just barely bad. That means that I gotta get another couple of chips to put in the other board so that I can have a full set. I have here my C64 board that has a lot more problems than the other one, and since I am short 2 working memory chips to test that one out, I'm just going to start pulling chips out of this one, which I'm going to be doing eventually anyways, until I find 2 that are working, because I think there's probably memory problems on this one as well. So let's start at the beginning. Alright, I've got the other board populated with my known working chips, so let's see what happens. Still doing exactly the same thing. Alright, I'll be back in a second. I'm going to try something different. Alright, I've grabbed another working chip. This is the one out of my actual working computer. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through and try replacing each Aha. We had a bent leg. That may have been the problem. Maybe that bent leg was the problem. Let's see. No, that was not the problem. All right, getting back to what I was going to do. I'm going to pull each chip in turn. And try replacing them. This is looking better. Oh my goodness, I think that's very, very odd that this worked in the other computer. Huh. Well, let's keep this going for a while and see what happens. Okay, very interesting. It is actually showing the U9, U11, and U22 bad again. Screen RAM, it's not giving an okay, but at least it's actually running through the entire diagnostic right now. It's giving some glitches, so it's working better, but I think there's still a problem there. And I don't think it's any of the memory chips. I'm thinking it might be some of the logic chips. But we're getting closer. And now it appears to have actually frozen up on the screen RAM again. What happens if we reset it? It's going through the screen RAM just fine. So when it runs through a few times, it'll lock up, but off the start, it's actually going through the entire diagnostic process. So, oh, we're getting closer, we're getting closer. I've been testing that chip that I took out of the other one that immediately failed when I tried it again, and it has been failing a little bit. I just reset the thing. It's running through the tests again, but it did freeze up. So I guess that chip is also right on the edge of being bad. So now that is 3 chips that I found. The next thing for me to try is I'm going to be removing these 4 logic chips. Now these 2 logic chips here I've already tested because they're socketed already. I just have to do these 4 here. So I guess we'll get doing that, and then we'll also retest the other logic chips, but yeah. Let's start soldering. The first chip that we are testing is the 7416 in U8. And it seems to be working fine. The next chip we are testing is U13, and it is a 74257. Next is the other 74257 in U25. That also tested good. Next is U15, which is a 74139. Also good. So far, all the logic chips are working just fine. Next, we are at U26, which is a 74373. Only 2 chips left. The next one is U27, which is a 7408. That one is also good. And our last chip is U14. U14 is a 74258. And that one tests good. So all the logic chips are testing good. Alright, I went through and I checked all of the logic chips. They all seem to be working just fine. So, are we still having the same problem? Yes. Yes, we are. Well, I have to take this board over and try and figure out what to do next. So looking right here, this is the basic ROM, and upon a really close look, I can see there's a few solder joints here that look a little suspect. I don't think that's the problem, but may as well give them a little extra solder just to make sure. Since at this point, I have no idea what the problem is. Well, I guess I have basically 3 more things to try here. Since U2 was bad, why not try taking out U1, replace that with a known working one. We'll see if that makes a difference. If not, we'll move on to U7. And finally, we'll try the PIA. So let's start with U1. U1 was not the problem, so now we'll take out U7 and see what happens there. All right, so here is where we stand. I have changed out the processor, the PLA, and the VIC-2. We're still freezing in the screen RAM, but on the plus side, it's no longer saying U9, U11, and U22 are bad. Now, that little bit went away when I changed the VIC-2 chip. So this is the VIC-2 chip that was in there, so I'm going to have to test that out in another board, and yeah. I'm at a bit of a loss for what I should be doing next. Maybe it's one of these 4 chips. I mean, I have changed out just about everything on this board. I guess one thing I haven't done yet is pulled the ROMs out to see. I guess that's next. I've socketed just about everything else, so may as well not stop now. After doing so much work to this board, I decided I would hook it back up and play some games on it. This is when I discovered something I had not noticed before, or maybe it's something new, I don't know. Most games running just fine. Every now and then, though, I'll put in a game and it will get a glitch in it. Generally, it's a glitch of part of the game repeating over and over and over again, or completely skipping part of the game. So, I guess that leaves the possibility of a few things that I have not changed on this board, and that would be the basic ROM or the kernel ROM. So yeah, let's take out the basic ROM and put in a no one working one and see what happens. So it was not the basic ROM. This is out of my working computer. Time to change the kernel ROM. All right, the kernel ROM and the basic ROM, these are both out of my working Commodore 64, and there was no change. I tested both of these chips that were in here in my working Commodore 64. They both work fine. So, I've got two 4066 chips here, U16 and U28. U28 is mostly connected to the keyboard, so I doubt that's it, but U16 is connected to the RAM, so let's try that one. And here we go. I'm back at my chip tester. Got the 4066 ready to go, and testing normal. So, oh, that's not it. Well, here it is. I have changed or checked almost every single chip on this board, and I'm still getting the same result. I had mentioned about how I've found a couple of video games where it seems to be glitching. Well, here's an example of that. We'll look at BC's Quest for Tires here. I've got both screens up there, the board I'm currently working on and my working Commodore 64. As you can see, with the board I'm currently working on, the patterns are repeating rather than going through different things like on the working computer. And if you hear the sound, then you can see that the sound seems to be working fine. So back to this board, the only two that I have not taken out are the SID chip and the color RAM, so I've done everything else. Why stop now? Let's take the SID out first. We can test this board without the SID in it because it should work fine with no SID. So I tested it without a SID chip, and I tested it with the SID chip from my working computer, and I got exactly the same result. That leaves one chip left on the board, and that is the color RAM. Now I'm 99.9% sure that it's not the color RAM because all the colors look fine on everything that I do on the computer, but it's the only chip left, so hey, why not socket it? Alright, I have checked or replaced every single chip on this computer. Now, it's time to give it one last test with the final chip that I've checked, which is the color ROM. I've replaced it, and oh my goodness, it went through the test. How would the color RAM have done this? Okay, you know what? We're just going to leave it. Let it run. I'm not going to get my hopes up here. Oh, I don't know if you saw that, but it glitched, and yeah. It's glitching. So this is kind of like how it was before after I replaced the bad RAM chips, that it is sometimes running through the diagnostic but glitching while it's doing it. And of course, still showing U9, U11, and U22 as bad. And if you look at the count, this is actually the second time through, but that little hiccup there reset it. So this is technically the third time through, and it says it's only gone through once. It's throwing some garbage up on the screen, but hey, it is working a little bit better. Well, it's run through a couple of times. It is showing some glitching on the screen, but it's actually running through. So, I'm going to plug in BC's Quest for Tires and see if it's still doing the same glitch there. And I am back to try out BC's Quest for Tires. Is it still gonna be glitching the same? Now, if you remember earlier, I showed you it glitches by just constantly repeating the same obstacle. Ooh. It is not. Are we going to get trees? Okay, that's still not playing properly because there should be some logs here. So it's technically, yeah, still glitching out. Just not glitching out as badly. And I'm actually getting through level by level here. Huh, okay. This is just more confusing than ever. What a journey this has been. What started out as a simple problem of the computer not talking to the disk drive with a simple fix of YouTube being bad turned into a giant rabbit hole of bad RAM chips and just weird glitches. So I've discovered 3 games so far where there is some weird glitching. BC's Quest for Tires, which I've shown you. Gorf, which will randomly just, in the middle of a level, go to the next level. You won't finish killing everything, and you'll just skip to the next level. And Outrun, which has a little bit of glitching on the screen. Until you hit your turbo button, then the whole screen glitches. Until your turbo is finished, and then it goes back to mostly normal. So, I mean, I don't know what the problem could be. I'm kind of out of ideas. But hey, as Monty Python always said, always look on the bright side of life. And the bright side of life here is that in the last couple of weeks that I've been working on this computer, I've learned more about the Commodore 64 than I ever knew before. And I've managed to desolder just about every chip on the board. Now, my desoldering wasn't perfect. I did have to add, I think, 3 bodge wires. But the fact that only 1 chip on this board at the beginning was socketed, and now they're all socketed, I think I did a pretty good job. And where I'm going to go from here, I haven't decided yet. The chips seem to be working fine, except for maybe those RAM chips. They really inconsistently seem to glitch out or to show as bad. You can run the test over and over and over on them, and they're fine, and then all of a sudden one time they'll just lock up. But, yeah, I have to decide in the future what I'm going to do with this. I mean, I do know that I have all those working chips, which will help me get my other board going. And, yeah, so I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget that a like, a subscribe, and a comment below are all things that help the channel out a lot and are greatly appreciated. But until next time, see you later.